Hi, I am Reverend Katie Peterson Madden. I am currently serving at Knob Prairie United Church of Christ in Enon, Ohio, and this is my application video for the NGLI application process. Question 1. God has called me into ministry and into the parish to be a continued source of light and positivity, as well as a deep well of caring for others. I believe that we are all given spiritual gifts unique to ourselves that God has equipped each of us with. I am a deeply empathetic person. I am caring and connected to people, specifically to those who are in my life in any way, shape, or form. I believe God has set me on a path of ministry to continue to be able to help me be this force of love and empathy for others and to help share compassion and kindness. In addition, the United Church of Christ not only shares a passion for sharing God's love, but also for sharing the image of God's justice. I believe that this is why I am being called to the United Church of Christ and have chosen to be in the United Church of Christ. I fully and firmly believe in the vision of this denomination, and I believe in the work of this church. I do not believe that we can have love without justice, because we cannot fully love someone if we do not choose to fight for their liberation and their best interests so they can live a fully free life. To be in the United Church of Christ allows me to live out my calling of loving people deeply, mirroring God's love, and fighting for the justice of all of God's people. I believe I am called by God to show others that we can create the image of God's kingdom, the one of beauty, of selflessness, and of equity, through steps of compassion, empathy, and a true willingness to love one another, even when that requires us to change in our own individual mindsets and ways. Question 2. In many ways, while I know why I am where I am, not only in my setting at Knob Prairie, but in my role as a minister, in all reality, I don't really know why I am where I am. I oftentimes feel way in over my head, and I feel like God is pranking me. I feel like God is calling me into ministry, and just like most of the people who in the Bible have said, "Here I am, send me," I feel like they also said it while shaking and being nervous, anxious, and feeling entirely unprepared. And I feel like, in general, there is an air of not wanting to talk about feeling overwhelmed and underprepared. We don't want to seem like we don't know what we're doing, but my call of saying, "Here I am, send me," follows up with, "Here I am, send me, but man, oh man, am I nervous to let you down." So what do I want to do with what do I think of my vision for my life right now? I don't always know. I guess the right answer is that my vision is to get through each day, one day at a time, ensuring that the members of the church that I serve at now know that they are loved, that they are more than their worst mistakes or worst decisions, that there is a future at the church to be worked for. My vision is to ensure that the aging congregation of this church feels peace during the final part of this phase of their lives, and to provide hope for them that there is something more once they exit this plane of life and enter into the next phase, and to provide comfort for those who are still here after they depart. My vision is to keep hope alive at Knob Prairie and to help them see that they are connected to a larger community who they are able to impact and they support, and that they can care about those who are outside the walls of their church. But the real, undone, less zipped up answer is that I don't know. I don't know what my vision is because I feel like God is so big and this job is so big and people need so much, and the work of the church can be so overwhelming and scary and messy sometimes, that it feels like God is saying, Here, I'm sending you to do this, but I'm not really giving you much detail on what to do. And sure, I feel God guiding me and leading me, and I see God winking at me a countless number of times throughout the day. But I also feel the weight of how big this role actually is a countless amount of times throughout the day. Seeing the death and desperation, the angst and anxiety, and at times the hopelessness can feel like it's the opposite of what I actually think I want to do. But ultimately, I do this job because I fully feel called into helping others love their neighbors as themselves and helping restore God's peace and justice in the world. I do this job because God let me strike out on all the other things I told God I was going to do before God lovingly embraced me and said, Here, here. You're being called into ministry. This is what I've been preparing you for. And as a disciple, I laugh and I cry along my journey, realizing that God is helping me and equipping me along the way. Question 3. My biblical text, I specifically chose the book of Ruth in general, but specifically Ruth 1, verse 16. But Ruth replied, Don't urge me to leave you or turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. When I first answered this question, I was going to quote the book of Luke because the overarching themes of justice and liberation for the oppressed in the Gospel of Luke is to me the truest form of what Jesus was trying to teach others throughout his life and work. However, the more I thought about it, the more I realized that the book of Ruth is more like my ministry than anything else. Ruth and Naomi are, of course, by force and choice, trusting each other into the unknown. They go on a journey together, not knowing what the details will entail, but knowing that they will be doing it together, and that at times it will be hard. Ruth commits to Naomi, and she to her, even though the hardships of the journey to Judah even through the hardships of the journey to Judah, to rebuilding when they got there, to Naomi being a stranger to the land, on and on. They then build a life together, a formed family of choice, of one another committing with a desire to grow a future, and that future becomes more beautiful and fruitful than anything they could have ever imagined. The beginning of the book of Ruth is so sad and bleak, and it feels at times like there's no hope for these women, as well as Orpah. However, throughout the book, including when Ruth makes this commitment to Naomi, and the work of God in the background, an image of restored hope has been created. I believe this is often how we can understand ministry. We as ministers often enter into situations where we can see that people feel defeated and out of hope. And really, every single day, we enter into a situation where we see people who can feel defeated and out of hope. But when we make a commitment to them and we commit to walk the journey together through whatever may come, and when we commit to finding God in the midst of it all, we can find an image of restored hope, beauty, and faith throughout, much like the images in the book of Ruth. Next question. What leadership lessons have proven valuable in your ministry? The best way for me to answer this is to share 2 compliments about myself that I have held on to since I have heard them. First, from a member of my former church. He once described me as having an unending tenderness. Additionally, someone else told me that the way they would describe me to others is as a non-judgmental person who you could tell anything to, who won't get you out of trouble or take you to the finish line, but will shine a light to help guide you to the finish line. Both of these descriptions are how I would describe my leadership style and have proven valuable to my ministry. My tenderness and genuine care for people translates to an understanding that God's love is within me, and I am so passionate about helping others know what God's love feels like. To know that God loves them, to know that they are both safe and cared for, to feel that I am a safe person and that I am a person who they are able to open up to be unbuttoned around and truly themselves. I believe my tenderness leads people to allow themselves to feel more accepted, more safe, more loved, and then leads them into a larger embrace, leading to the cycle of God's unending love in our world. I also believe the understanding of shining a light on the finish line for others, as opposed to taking others to the finish line, helps people in the best way possible. The understanding of empowering, embracing, and loving people, letting them know that I and others are here to help, challenge, and guide, but not make every decision, leads to people understanding the choices being made, other choices that need to be made, and real change can be created through their own choices. I believe when we believe in others, when I can shine the light to the finish line, it helps illuminate them. It helps fill them up with confidence in God's love and helps them believe in themselves. And I'm cheering them on and I'm leading them and I'm guiding them through their own work and their own confidence. I believe that both of these facets of my leadership style are helpful in my ministry and continue to lead to share God's love and empower God's people. Next question, share a brief and specific narrative of your leadership in the congregation. During the first 3 to 4 months of my ministry at Knob Prairie, I began to discuss the idea of membership. I engaged in conversation regularly about what membership means, what it has meant to the church, the big church, and specifically Knob Prairie in the past, and began to pose open-ended questions about what it could mean in the future. The congregation has a long history. It is over 200 years old, and sometimes has a hard time of breaking out of the mold of what we have always done. I asked them to begin thinking of new terminology to use for non members in order to create less of an us versus them understanding for those who are official members versus those who have been part of the congregation for years but choose not to officially join. Before our fall congregational meeting, one of the members approached me to discuss that they would like to propose a change to the Constitution to include members and active participants, who are those who have given of their times, talents, or resources for the last 2 years, in order to allow them to be able to become voting members and to serve on the board. This process mirrors the way that I choose to lead. I began discussing the concept with the congregation and the board members, challenging them and posing questions, but not telling them what to do. This allowed them the space and opportunity to make decisions that they believed in and are passionate about. By coming up with the idea of the constitutional change and proposing it to the congregation was enthusiastic about it because it wasn't something I chose for them or I forced upon them. This also expanded the conversation about how we understand community and membership. It has helped create even more conversation about making others a part of our community, even if they are not going to be in our church service every Sunday morning as a member. It has given us a chance to keep growing and making our understanding of a faith family wider because we are not confined to only those who have engaged in intentional membership with our church. What spiritual practices do you engage in and how do you deepen your faith? I engage in a daily prayer walk. This is typically a 30 to 45-minute walk in the evenings, and I use it as a way to connect with God. I typically go the same exact route so that I don't have to think about going different ways or new ways or finding different distractions. It's a very similar, almost routine way so that I can just stay in connection with God. I believe in my personal relationship with God, and I find that this is a time to be able to truly connect and process in a conversational way. I also read a daily devotional in the mornings to set my mind on a clear path for the day and give me something to think about and reflect during the day. And I intentionally disconnect from my phone when I get home in the evenings after work. I put on my do not disturb setting, or I sit in another room that I'm not in, or something along those lines. I find that this is the best way to spiritually reset because it allows me to be entirely present in my circumstances and aware of the blessings immediately around me. I have found that I need to try to refocus on the ways I feel so very blessed in my life. It can be hard to think about what I don't have or what I want or what I wish I had. And so when I go on my walks and when I set my phone down and I'm in the midst of my blessings, it just helps me reset and rethink about all that I have and all that I'm blessed with. I thank you so much for this time and opportunity for you watching this video and listening to my answers. I encourage you to please reach out if you have any questions or would like any additional information. Thank you so much. God bless.